everyone, and welcome to the EVOLVE Voices podcast, a platform to hear about the fascinating stories behind the people that power global commerce. I am Mayssa Nasr, a marketing and growth consultant, and I am your Middle East host for EVOLVE Voices. Today, we are joined by a truly global leader, Fadi Abi Nader, who is the Vice President of One Demand for Global Emerging Markets at Mars Wrigley. Fadi has over 20 years of experience across marketing, sales, digital commerce, and data strategy. He leads growth across more than 140 markets today, spanning the Middle East, India, Asia, Australia, Africa, and Latin America. So in this episode, we will dive into what it takes to lead at scale, the nuances of building high-performing teams across different cultures, and how data and innovation are shaping the future of consumer goods. And we will also explore Fadi's personal leadership philosophy, lessons from his journey, and what it means today to grow both people and business with purpose. Fadi, welcome to the EVOLVE Voices podcast, and thanks a lot for accepting my invitation.
Mayssa, thank you very much. It's great to be talking to you again. I remember when we used to work together in the past. So thank you for the invitation. And the way you introduced the podcast makes me want to listen to the podcast. Actually, it sounds very exciting. Now I realize I have to be the one talking. So no, thank you. And hello and welcome to everyone who's listening or watching. Looking forward to that conversation.
Amazing. Fadi, just for those who don't really know Mars, can you just explain very quickly what is Mars Wrigley and how big is the company today in terms of, revenues and market shares?
Absolutely. So Mars Incorporated is a large group that is a family-owned business that started more than 100 years ago, 1911 to be very specific, and that covers more than 180 countries with a turnover of around $50 billion, around 150,000 associates. We call our employees associates because we believe in the associate concept and how we're all associates in that business. It's a principle-driven business with 5 principles at the core of everything we do. We're mostly a food business, and we have leading positions in many categories, be it chocolate, pet food, etc. Quite a large business. Mars Wrigley is part of it and focused on chocolate, gum, and fruity confections. So that's in a nutshell the Mars Incorporated business and the Mars Wrigley business that I'm part of.
Perfect. Thank you. So can you take us through your career journey and what led you to your current role today as VP, right? And can you also explain what is One Demand, please?
Absolutely. So happy to do that. Before that, so a big part of my journey and me being here, I would like to acknowledge my family. So not because they're standing around, because they're not. And I don't think they will listen to the podcast, but just to put credit where credit is due. So I'm married to Miriam for more than 20 years, 2 daughters that I'm very proud of, Dana and Melek. They are 17 and 13 respectively. And they've really been a big part of my journey, really. And that's really my pride and joy so far. I've been part of Mars, as you said, for more than 20 years, 21 years to be exact. Next month. My current role, so One Demand is a combination. So it is what other companies call commercial, right? So it's a combination of marketing, sales, digital commerce, and data and analytics. So all these functions grouped together under one umbrella, because we believe that now the lines are blurring between these different functions. And I think we'll talk about digital commerce a bit later. This is where the lines are really blurring between sales and marketing, for example. So Mars has put these functions under one umbrella called One Demand, because we believe that we need to have an integrated approach to the consumer. So that's One Demand in a nutshell. My journey within Mars has been long. I don't think we have time, but if I am to summarize, again, I've been very lucky and privileged to be working in different countries, different continents, different brands. It's a fantastic company where you can have the chance to move between different portfolios, different geographies, and learn. It's a great learning company. So I started back in Egypt as an assistant manager. And at the time, the Egypt business was starting. I joined, it was a small apartment in a building doing importation of some of our global brands like Snickers, Mars, M&M's, etc. And then we moved to establishing a factory and going into a real expanded operation. And then I moved to regional roles, handling North Africa, Levant, the Gulf, until I became the regional marketing director for the Middle East. And then I took a leap of faith and moved to a sales role. So I moved from being a marketing director to a sales director in Egypt. So moving from managing a team of 10, 15 people to literally thousands of people with a very different DNA. And it was a fantastic, fantastic learning experience. I had to change personally first before changing professionally. So I did that for a couple of years. And then I moved to my first GM role as the GM of Egypt. And then this expanded to a couple of other markets in North Africa and in Levant. So I had fantastic experiences in many countries, including your lovely country. And I'm also half Lebanese, by the way. So, but I can't claim more than this. So, so I enjoyed that for a couple of years. And then 6 years ago, I took another leap of faith and moved from a GM role to a regional role for a region called emerging markets, that you mentioned.
Yes.
And it was also a big change because I moved from handling an operation, handling a P&L, handling big teams into a regional strategic role where you have to develop other muscles in terms of influencing without authority, creating overall strategy, working with geographies that I had never worked with. So I thought I knew everything because I worked in the Middle East, but then I realized I don't know much. And I started building amazing knowledge and experience working with Brazil, India, Mexico, Australia, Philippines, you name it, right? 140 markets. So I've been very, very lucky. First leading strategy and then marketing and then now won the band. So that's a little bit of the journey.
It's an amazing journey. So back to digital commerce that you touched upon during the introduction. So in your view, how has digital commerce reshaped today the consumer goods industry, especially in emerging markets?
That's a great question, Mayssa. We know digital commerce is changing the way we interact as humans, right? It's making things a lot easier, a lot smoother. And I believe in emerging markets, the impact will be much, much bigger and much stronger. I have a personal belief that in a couple of years, the entire cycle will change. Because if you remember from your FMCG days, the biggest challenge is distribution. We were talking about around 10 to 15 million different outlets, all of them being super, super small. So basically the corner kiosk or kirana, etc., in most of the markets. Now, for big companies to cover all these stores, the cost doesn't justify the return. Yet, when DCOM comes into the equation, this can close the link. And I'm not talking any DCOM. I'm talking on-demand delivery. So delivery in less than 1 hour, which is a model that is very, very advanced in emerging markets versus developed markets. Actually, it's much less than an hour. In India, you can get products in 7 to 8 minutes, depending on where you are. And this applies to rural areas where international products are not there in the local stores, but you can order them on the app and get them in 7 or 8 minutes. So suddenly, if I talk about our range, suddenly people have access to a Snickers bar, an M&M's pack, a Galaxy bar. Imagine, all thanks to DCOM. So and this is just the beginning. So I believe DCOM will have a massive role to close this gap of availability and make international products or even national products available to more and more people in emerging markets.
Okay, nice. So now e-com is, in terms of shares for Mars, is e-com the number one today?
For most FMCGs, it's still not number one. It is number one for many other categories, or I'm not sure of the data, but I would imagine for the electronics, etc., it is a very big contributor. For fast-moving consumer goods, most of them being impulse products, still brick and mortar is bigger. And I think will remain bigger as long as this channel exists. So DCOM is important, of course, at varying degrees depending on the product. In our pet business, obviously, it's much bigger than in our Mars Wrigley business. However, it's not the number one channel. Will it be one day? I suspect that yes, with the right development of paying platforms, because again, not all markets have an established infrastructure for people to pay virtually. And it's mostly cash on delivery, which is very complicated, etc. So with some investment in the infrastructure, I believe DCOM will be a much, much bigger contributor to the turnover of companies.
Okay. And Fadi, in terms of innovation, how does Mark today approach innovation?
Yeah, it's innovation is an area I'm passionate about, honestly. I always believe the core of any brand, of any company, is the number one driver of growth, right? Yet innovation plays a very, very important role. Yet it's still the core. If you think of any product in any category, you will always remember the core product or the core SKU. And then you have the different flavors, the different formats, the different variants, etc. So my philosophy, which is not only my philosophy, it's the company or the industry philosophy, is that don't forget that the core is your bread and butter. Now, how to find the right role of innovation? Because of course, innovation has a role. So I think innovation's role is mostly to enter new partitions, develop and fill new needs that the consumers have, uh, as opposed to just offering a strawberry version of everything. So innovation has a very big role, but it has to be done in a way that it is tackling a different partition in terms of consumer need and not just adding SKUs on the shelf. Because at the end of the day, when you add SKUs on the shelf, you will take space from the core SKU and risk harming the business.
Yes, and then risk of cannibalization, from your
Absolutely.
core SKU.
Absolutely.
True. And how do analytics and data today inform the decision making in such large organizations like Mars, and especially across different markets?
I'm learning a lot about this area because part of On Demand, as I said, is On Demand data and analytics, which was a very foreign area to me. I'm an old school marketeer who
Yes.
I was getting the Nielsen reports in a printed format that thick, right? And I was used to digging into numbers to come up with insights. That was a long time ago. And now everything is moving to data and analytics because it's all about identifying consumer needs faster, being able to read into the tons of data points. Everything that happens online is documented. Everything is translated to data points. In supermarkets, everything is there in terms of data. So it's not about having access to in the past, the challenge was having access to data. Now the challenge is, what do you make with the data? Because you can easily drown in the data lake with millions of data points that are mostly now free. So still by data, but the majority of data is available. So the companies that will be better and faster at making sense of the data and converting it to insights and ways to serve consumers better will be the companies that will win. So so data is getting super important. We have a data department. We are using a lot of data and analytics to understand our performance, understand the category's performance, understand competitors' performance, analyze and even test new concepts. Now, you don't have to go and do a massive consumer research physically. You can do a lot with data, still with humans, right? AI is a different discussion, but you can
actually
use
going to
data.
ask you if you are using AI today to
We
analyze
are.
this data.
AR can be the subject of a separate podcast. It's a
Yeah,
big
true.
word and getting bigger. If you ask my kids, they'll tell you I am obsessed with AI.
Okay.
I always use on my phone all these little, aside from work, all these different apps to generate things, and they're not impressed because they grew up with AI. So for them, it's parts like our Google. So they're not impressed. I'm impressed. So work-wise, AI will change, is already changing the landscape in both sales and marketing, the areas I'm closer to. I believe that AI will change the world for the better. If you think of the industrial revolution around 150, 200 years ago, people thought the world would end because now there was a mechanical way at the time to automate things. And then a lot of people had to use their skills in a different way because they weren't packing products into boxes anymore. The machine was doing it for them. I believe AI is very similar. So AI will automate a lot of manual things that we are doing right now. Think of all the analytics, think of all the financial exercises, etc., which will force humans, us, to focus our thinking on other things and accordingly innovate and create new things better and faster. This is what happened with the Industrial Revolution. I believe this is what will happen with AI. So
That's a nice way to put it, actually, because many people are scared of AI today, right? Of losing their jobs, maybe. So, but that's a nice way, of seeing it. So you need to have, your skills. You would use these skills in another way, maybe in another job. So,
absolutely, and a lot of people lost their job in the Industrial Revolution because they were packing products
yes,
into boxes. I mean, I'm over dramatizing, but guess what? Humanity has evolved, and these people were able to use their given gifts in a different way to create. And in the advancement that happened in the last 150 years or 200 years is unmatched in the history. So I believe the same will happen. Will some people lose their jobs? Yes. Will it be the end of the world? No. People will readjust to use their skills and create more, which I think this is what we're designed to do.
Nice, nice. Fadi, so you have 140 markets, right, that you're leading. If you are to choose one market that really surprised you positively, which market would it be and why?
Many markets. I can say India.
Okay.
Before this role, I had never been to India. I was always fascinated by the India I was seeing in the media and I was hearing about from friends, but I had never been to India. And one of the biggest positive surprises for me was India. I really enjoyed and still enjoy learning about India, learning about people there, learning about the culture, learning about the potential. Because the country is urbanizing very fast, developing very fast, while preserving local habits, local culture, which is a very difficult balance. We've seen a lot of countries that urbanized and modernized and lost their local culture or not lost, but went directly to a Western culture. So no, India is preserving that local culture, but still advancing and westernizing very fast. I am in admiration with the technological advancement in India, with the cultural advancement, and with the potential. You're talking of the most populated country in the world, with a rate of modernization that is unmatched. The economy is growing, the influence beyond India. Many of the top 100 CEOs are from India. So I see a lot of potential in India. So answering your question, it is one of the countries where I was, with respect to all others, obviously, but it's the country where I was mostly impressed.
Okay. So let's move on more into you and the lessons and your leadership style, right? So you've learned, of course, a lot through these 20 years and from managing all these countries. So if you are to choose like a couple of lessons you've learned from working across so many diverse regions and cultures.
Well, I'm not sure I'm in a position to give lessons, but and if you ask my kids, I think they'll agree. No, look, I believe that the more you learn, the more you realize there is a lot to learn, and the more you realize you know a fraction of things. Some of my biggest revelations were, and again, these were all given to me by wiser people. So first of all, always staying humble and curious, because as I said, when I moved from the Middle East job I had to a global job, I thought I knew a lot, but then I realized that I don't know much. People are different, cultures are different. Even when I started leading a team of more international associates, I realized I need to learn and flex my style. So always be humble, always be curious, ask questions, try to learn and listen. And this is an area where I had to learn a lot. So how to listen and make sense and understand to be able to continue developing and learning and giving back, because that's your role, right? As an organization and also as an individual, as a leader, my role is to serve my team, develop them and grow them. But I can only do that by listening to them and getting to learn about their culture, their background, style, etc. So I would say how to continuously stay humble and curious.
Fadi, you are known across the Mars Wrigley and Mars Inc. for your passion for building high-performance teams. And I still remember this from the old days when I used to work there. So tell us, what's your secret for nurturing talent and leadership and that everyone loves Fadi? What's the secret of Fadi?
I hope it's true. I hope it's true. I'm sure there are some people who would disagree, but no, look, this is what gets me up, gets me out of bed in the morning. The feeling of leaving a positive impact on people in general. Now, it just happens that the majority of my time is with my team, but I think of it beyond work. I think of it about my family. I think of it in terms of our community and giving back. So not that I do this well, but this is what I try to do. That's my purpose. So with my team, given this is where I spend the majority of my time, I always try to leave my team in a better place, because again, people come and go, you manage people and then you change, etc. So I always try to leave them in a better place. Not necessarily promotion-wise, because you can't promote everyone, but from a human point of view, from a capability point of view, etc. This is what passionates me, because at the end of the day, business results come and go. We all know the cycles. You never have a continuous upwards trend. But people do not come and go in terms of development. So this is an area I'm passionate about. It's very much aligned to my personal purpose. And I'm learning with time. I'm learning, as I was mentioning, the cultures are very different. Developing people means very different things across different cultures. The need and want for learning and promotion also varies greatly between different cultures. So I'm learning, but that's an area of passion for me.
And can you share any story of someone without, of course, naming anyone, but of someone you mentored who made a significant leap in their career?
Difficult not to mention names, but they will know themselves if they hear that. No, again, I'm proud of many people that I had the chance to work with. The story that comes to my mind is when I moved to sales, and I mentioned I moved from marketing to sales. So very different DNA of associates, very different caliber, not better or worse, but very different. I was used to working with very polished marketeers to very on the ground, very realistic and pragmatic sales associates. So very different DNA, and I had to shift my DNA. And my role there was to develop sales leaders into more business leaders, because it's great to be a sales leader, absolutely, but to be a well-rounded business leader, you need to see the different aspects of the business, including marketing, finance, etc. So one of them moved from a situation where he was very much in a certain career path, not very senior, and with a perception that this is his path and he's very limited in this path, right? With many blockers around him. Now he's a very senior director, great language skills across many languages, still doing one market, but lots of influence given the advancement of the market he's leading, and in a very different place. So I'm not working directly with him anymore, but I do see him, and I'm very proud of where he is, and I believe that the sky's the limit. I think he's going to go far.
Nice. Fadi, how do you personally stay grounded and motivated like this? Because it's a high pressure, high stake environment, right? So how do you do it to be able to motivate and lead?
I work mostly from home, so if you ask my wife, she will tell you I'm not always grounded. But no, it's a difficult question in this day and age. As you said, the pressures are high, both at work and outside work. So I don't have a magic recipe. Again, I heard from a lot of wise people. What I try to do is balance between work and other things I like to do. So I like to exercise. I'm not exactly an athlete, and I don't look like an athlete, but I like to exercise as an amateur to maintain a minimal level of fitness, but also to clear my mind and to think about other things, etc. So that's a big part of my routine. I exercise nearly every day. I also take the time to relax. I'm blessed with the ability to work from home most of the time because I work with a lot of people who are not in my base country. Yes. So I work from home, which gives me the ability to spend time with the family, so I don't commute. I do travel a lot. That's true. But when I don't travel, I stay home. So I can connect with the family before work, after work, and even if I have a half-hour break, I go and sit with the family. So if they're around, obviously. So so that's that. When I travel, I always make the time to explore the local countries, take a day or two off, so the weekend before or after, to explore the country. And I've had the chance to explore amazing countries. We take holidays. So what I learned as well is that I was always leaving the holiday planning to the last minute. But then I observed much more senior people who had their holidays booked for a year and a half in advance. So that was a foreign concept to me. And I started doing that. So plotting the kids' holidays and then planning and actually booking holidays during these slots. So whatever happens at work, I'm on holiday. So these are some of the things I learned from other people. And I think it's working. I mean, it doesn't remove all stress, obviously, but it helps you stay grounded and stay motivated.
You're talking about remote work. What do you think about remote work? Obviously, for you, it's working, of course, but I mean, in general, what do you think about it?
Look, I am a fan of remote work. I won't deny that. Now, do you still need to be connected to an office to stay grounded and feel you're part of an organization? Yes.
Okay.
Does it differ from the amount of time you spent in a company? Yes. So I started working remotely after around 20 years in an organization,
Yeah.
working in offices. I wouldn't advise a new recruit, regardless of seniority, I wouldn't
Yes.
advise a new joiner to work from home from day one because they need to know about the culture, they need to know about the people, etc. And it depends on the job. So my job, my entire team is outside of my home country.
Yes.
Uh, while when I was a GM, obviously, my team was around, team, extended team, customers, etc. Of course, you need to be in the office and in the market to, because your role is to inspire on the ground. While here, I do that remotely because I don't work with people on the ground. It
Yes.
depends on the phase of your career, it depends on the
Mm.
job, it depends on where your team is, it depends on many things. But when all the factors align, I
Yes.
believe it can work, which is the case for me now.
Fadi, what excites you most about your mission in the coming years? Do you see yourself, I don't know, it's a Mars forever and ever because you're loyal to Mars? I don't know. So where do you see yourself?
HR is watching, so I can't. No, honestly, the values and principles of Mars align with mine. I've been around 21 years. Now, does anyone stay forever in a company until retirement? Yes. Some people, we just had a farewell of someone who had spent 37 years in Mars. So it does happen. Does it happen to everyone? No. So I don't know. Depends on the opportunity. So no plans, obviously now, but it depends on where will things go. Within Mars, I have a lot of ambitions in terms of experiences and roles I want to do. So again, it depends on where things will take me.
Okay. One last question about, the way Mars operates, because it's a private company, family-owned company. How is it to work in a family-owned company?
I haven't tried otherwise, except 3 years when I started, but I can't claim I even remember how it
Yeah.
looked like. Look, I'm enjoying it a lot. Again, I haven't tried otherwise
Yes.
recently, but I'm enjoying it a lot because it gives you the freedom to do things within a framework, obviously. There's no pressure from the stock market. Of course, the company needs to deliver value, but there's no pressure to publish results on a quarterly basis, go on quarter calls, etc. The pressure is not there, which gives the company the ability to do big things. So you probably remember the Wrigley acquisition around I don't know now, 17 years ago. And you've probably seen in the news potential acquisition with the Kellanova business. These acquisitions would have been probably very difficult if we were not a family company uh, because I don't know, I'm not an expert, but it would have put a lot of strain on the financials of the company.
Wow.
So the beauty about a family company is that it gives you freedom, and also the principles really live and breathe. All companies have something on the wall, right? As principles, guidelines, etc., and they all look and sound the same. Mars have slightly different ones. So you have a principle like mutuality, which is quite unique. You have a principle like responsibility. And I've been here long enough to realize that they do live and breathe. I've led markets as a GM during revolutions, wars, unrests, economic crashes, you name it. And these are the times where you really see the principles coming to life, even if they're at the account of the P&L. Because at the end of the day, it's a very small impact to the P&L compared to the principles you want to drive. And only a family business can take that cost in the P&L, but really insist on driving principles. So yeah, I'm enjoying it.
It's true. I've always said that Mars is one of the best companies I worked for, really, because of the principle that they hold. Fadi, what is the best advice that you have ever received
Oh,
throughout your career?
other than stay humble and curious, look, one of the best advice I got was from a career point of view, take risks. Do a leap of faith. And when I was sharing with you the journey at the beginning, I mentioned a couple of leaps of faith. And at the time, every time, there were lots of people who were telling me, that's crazy. For example, you're a marketing director for a region. At the time, Egypt was going through a revolution, civil unrest. Everyone was trying to leave. And I said, I'll take a sales director role, leading thousands of people during a time of revolution, civil unrest. And it paid off personally and professionally. When I moved to a regional role up from a GM role. Everybody told me, you are a GM, you have a big team, you have a P&L responsibility. Now you're moving to a regional role without a team, by the way. I spent the first couple of years without a team, and then I started building a team. So it was another leap of faith. So the advice I got was take bold steps in your career, of course, calculated steps, but bold steps. And if you're afraid, if you're worried, that means it's probably the right road.
Okay. We're at the end of our podcast. I just want to ask you about one thing you said at the beginning when you were, talking about your journey and how, you moved from GM to regional role, that you learned how to influence without authority. This is what you said. I love that. Can you just, explain more about that? How can you influence without authority?
It's a very different muscle. So I was always influencing with authority as a marketing director, as a sales director, as a GM. You do have authority. Of course, you need to influence the regional budget holders or global budget, etc. Of course, but I would say 80 to 90% of what you influence is with authority. So when I moved to a regional role, I realized I don't have a team. The markets have authority. I was doing their job, right? I knew how to read the market. But then I had no authority. While at the same time, I had to influence certain portfolio strategy, a certain communication strategy, etc. And I realized it's not just by telling people what they need to do. It is about building a compelling reason to believe, building a compelling case, building a compelling vision, and start to deploy it with the local nuances and understanding people better. You don't not just talking to them and deploying things. No, it needs to be both ways. You need to engage them in the creation of it so that the deployment becomes smoother, etc., etc., etc. So for me, it was a difficult muscle to learn. I'm still learning it. Many of my team members today come from authority roles, be it GMs or sales directors or marketing directors or digital directors, and they're moving to my team where it's mostly about influencing without authority. So I'm going through the journey with them because I went through the journey myself. I'm also coaching a lot of people on that front. So very different muscle, requires much more collaboration, cooperation, much more patience, because you will get rejected a lot. Your ideas, your strategy, your vision will get rejected a lot, which you wouldn't be used to in authority jobs. And then you need to deal with that. You need to rebound from that. You need to rethink it, rebuild it. Lots of stakeholder alignment as well. So, so it's a muscle that I'm learning as we go.
Okay, okay. Fadi, I have one last question for you that I always ask my guests. If you had one book to recommend, which one
Oh,
would it be and why?
wow. Lots of books. I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell in
Okay.
general,
Yes.
starting with The Tipping Point and now to The Tipping Point version 2 or Revisited, which I don't really like. I prefer the original one. So within his books, I like The Tipping Point, obviously, and I like Outliers as well.
Okay.
I
Yes.
recommend Outliers, actually. I actually have it on my desk because I always, when I have a break or something, I open it randomly and read a few things. So I like this style, this journalism style that is more of a storytelling journalism. Maybe that's not the correct way for that style, but it's not. It's a nonfiction style, and I think his books are very very interesting to understand humans in general. The behavior of humans, the psychology of humans, making sense of data and numbers. Most of what he writes about is rooted in statistics, analytics, and linking it to human behavior, which is very close to the work I do. So Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Fadi, for your time. You are actually someone through the podcast we can see that very humble. So this was one of the lessons and the advice. So thank you for your openness, for your humbleness. I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. And for all our listeners, thank you for staying up until the end. And as usual, keep evolving.
Thank you, Mayssa. It was a pleasure. Thanks for reaching out. I hope our listeners learned one or two things today. And yeah, so thank you and see you soon.
Great. So this was another great episode. Evolve Voices is a podcast from Evolve Commerce Club, the #1 private community, where we connect senior commerce professionals in more than 40 markets. Every week, we invite one expert to share their perspective and their knowledge. If you want to know more about Evolve, look at the link in this episode description to request your invitation. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!